Hi, and welcome to An Actor's Library. I am Carly Burke, and I am here today to review and talk about and praise the book Right for the Role by John Frank Levey. Who is John Frank Levey? I'll tell you. He's a casting director here in Hollywood, one whom I have auditioned for many times over the years. I'm approaching right now my 39th year in Hollywood. And like I said, I have auditioned for John many times. And I've booked 3 projects with him. I was so happy to see that John had written this book called Right for the Role, like I just said. John is an award-winning casting director. He's cast shows such as ER, China Beach, Southland, West Wing, Shameless, and I know that one of these shows has got to be your favorite or a show that you have watched in your lifetime. This book is amazing. I mean, there's so much in here. I don't even know where to start. It's not just a casting director book, in my opinion. It's not a how-to for anybody, how to do this, how to do that, how to be right for the role. It's not written in that way. It's John's story. But in his story, he shares many other stories, and he takes you on a journey that is just absolutely fascinating. And it would be for anyone, even if you weren't a casting director or an actor. If you're a fan of Hollywood, if you're a fan of any of these shows, you will love the book. First of all, what I love about it, I love the colors, okay? But then when you take the book jacket off, because I do love hard copy books, and I love to turn pages, old school, the inside is exactly like the outside. And there's John's picture right there. So I love that about it. The book is written, like I said, it's his story, and it's written in a format of what we in Hollywood call the breakdowns. Maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned that because it's a lot to go into to explain to someone who's not in the industry what a breakdown is. But basically, let me see if I can find an example. It's what the agents get from the casting directors to determine which actors they may send in for a role. So it's the name of the character, the age, and a description, and where they are in the story at the time. What job they do, if they're related to someone in the story or in the cast or in the show. Just all the important information for an actor to be able to make choices for the audition. So I'm just going to pick a random chapter here, chapter 3 for John, China Beach, and he breaks it down into his age, and then he tells a little bit about where he is in his life. And then he goes on to share more about the story, more about his experiences. And then he has a list of all the characters that he needs to cast. And then he shows us later on who ended up booking that role. These are mostly series regulars. And I just think that that was a fascinating way to tell his story. Also, what I learned, something I had never heard before, and I believe that John may have dubbed this term called the trampoline. And the trampoline are those actors who come in and out of the storyline throughout the season, guest stars and recurring actors. And they're called because they pop in and out from time to time. Bounce in and out, which is where he probably got the term trampoline. So I found that very fascinating. And he gives a shout out to all of the trampoline artists in the shows that he cast that he talks about in this book. The nuggets in this book are unbelievable. He doesn't give a list of this is what you need to do, this is what you shouldn't do, but he tells the story from his point of view, but if you're paying attention, then you understand like, oh, okay. Oh, I get it now, and I'm speaking from an actor's point of view. There's certain things that we just never know. No casting director has time to sit down and talk to you and tell you why you booked a role and why you didn't book a role. They're just trying to book the role. They're trying to cast the role, and they cast it and they move on. Nobody comes back to tell you what you could have done better or why you didn't book it. Nobody does that. So we are in our heads constantly trying to figure out, well, what did that mean? And I should have done this, and I should have worn red, or I should have done that, or maybe I shouldn't have been funny on that. Like, nobody has time for all of that. They're just simply looking for the best person, the actor that's right for the role, and that's all they have time to do. The rest of the stuff, we have to let it go once we leave the audition. But on page 60, there is a major gem. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because you really need to pick up this book. I hate to tell people what they need, but you really need to pick up this book and read it. It's fascinating. But on page 60, he gives 2 reasons why a casting director would give an actor an adjustment. And that means you've done the scene once and now they'd like to see something else. So he gives 2 reasons to give an adjustment from a casting director and 2 reasons not to give the adjustment. And actors, it's probably not what you think it is. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. I loved that in the beginning of the book, I realized how much John and I have in common. Like I said, I've been in and out of his offices. He's had more than one office during my career. So I've been in maybe 2 different offices because he's a steady guy. You know, he's worked for John Wells Productions for many, many years. And, you know, that's where you would go. Their whole production team was all together in one building on the lot. Warner Brothers, I believe it was the Warner Brothers lot. And so that's where we would go for years if you had a John Frank Levey audition. So I always liked him. I always knew it was not an office that you would go into and play. You needed to be on your A game. Show up, prepared, ready to go in there, get it done, and go on about your business. John Levey was not one to play with. So it was really fun to realize that we had similar backgrounds. We're about the same age, both from New York, and both with a theater background. So that was fun. And I always enjoyed going to his office because it was a really well-run casting office. And after reading this book, I know why. He took great care to make sure that it was a well-run casting office and that his actors always felt comfortable. And it's no surprise because when I worked on one of his John Wells produced shows, this was the only show that I've ever worked in all the years that I've been in this industry where you were not allowed to bring your sides, which are your lines, to the set, even for rehearsal. Now, you've booked the job already. You're supposed to come to work with your lines memorized. But most of the time when we have rehearsal, actors have the papers still in their hands. Sometimes on soap operas, the lines will be on a clipboard or under a pillow. If you're a nurse or wherever, you can see them because soap operas have soap opera actors have a lot to learn in a very short amount of time. But I digress. I worked on a John Wells show, and John Wells doesn't play sides. Baby sides, big sides, dialogue. No. You come to set, rehearsal, ready to shoot. No papers, no looking at the lines, none of that. And that was the kind of tone for that whole production company, which I really enjoy. I need regimen. I need structure. I need format. I work really well under those conditions. Since I'm talking about John Wells, let's just cut to a credit that John Frank Levey and I share that I know we are both extremely proud of. John Frank Levey cast Shameless for 11 years. He was there from the beginning to the very end of the whole run of Shameless. And I was booked for the pilot as Roberta Bobb. And a lot of people recognize me to this day for playing the role of Roberta Bobb in Shameless, which for me now would be maybe like 13 years ago. One of my most favorite jobs. It's really nice to feel like you're part of the family. I was a part of the family in a sense by marriage. Those of you who don't know the show, I'm not even going to tell you all the details. You'll have to go watch it. But I just had a ball on that show. I really liked watching the kids grow up. I loved it when we went to Chicago to do the exteriors. We would go to Chicago like twice a season and do all the exteriors for maybe 5 or 6 episodes at a time. So you were there with all the producers, all the series regulars, all the guest stars that were included in that scene, and all of the directors and everyone who was involved in 5 or 6 episodes. And it was really, really cool. You'd be there for maybe about a week. We stayed in a fabulous hotel, and it was really, it's on the top of my list of all my all-time favorite experiences in television. And when I talk about nuggets, and when I talk about trampolines, guess whose name is mentioned on page 223? Carlise Burke, Roberta Bobb. I'm zooming the book in. Yes. And I didn't even know that when I bought this book. This is a great book for yourself, for a gift, whether you're in the industry or out of the industry. If you're a fan of television, if you're a fan of Shameless, ER, China Beach, John Frank Levey, myself, if you're an actor, a casting director, it's just, I just love this book. And I'm so happy that I have one more thing to show you. I am so happy that John and I had lunch together recently. So I'm a little bit of an author groupie. And not only do I love hard copy books still, I love to get autographs. And so I met with John and we had lunch, and there's his autograph and special little note to me. And he spelled my name right, and I'm not even surprised. I knew I wasn't going to have to tell him how to spell my name. John Frank Levey writes a book called Right for the Role, and my favorite credit, one of my favorite credits, I auditioned for him, and I did not think that I was right for the role. But I'll tell you, you read this book and you'll understand why the things that we as actors, this is for the actors out there, the things that we think are usually wrong, and they really don't matter. Because if you're right for the role, you're right for the role. I want to thank you, John Frank Levey, and I've just known you as John Levey all these years. But when you read the book, you'll see where the Frank came from. So now you will forever be John Frank Levey. And I thank you for believing in me, for fighting for me, because I know you have in occasions, for giving me a chance, for casting me, and for writing this amazing book. And for those of you watching, you can get the book on Amazon or on John Frank Levey's webpage. Okay, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye. Like, comment, and subscribe.